I once again utter my truth, no longer can lie and make believe. Pretending pains my heart and punishes my head. The day of reckoning has finally arrived. So what am I speaking about here? I'm talking about probably the most important aspect of our lives in terms of creating balance. And that is the two aspects of our basic human nature, which are the head and the heart. The head is the thinking part of ourselves. The heart is the feeling part of ourselves. What's interesting about them is that they're opposites, and in nature opposites balance. So if I'm out of balance with my head and heart, I'm out of balance with my life, and that's when the different manifestations come about, which can be very positive or very negative depending on how much balance or lack of balance I have in those two aspects of my nature. So we have to look at the heart and the head, and where are they? Now, frequently, or it's also, people talk about the inner child and adult, which is really nothing more than the heart, which is the child, and the head, which is the adult. And the way, why they describe those two in that way is because if you observe a child or an adult, they're very different. In fact, they're opposite in their natures. For instance, a child is feeling, is spontaneous, is playful, is unreasonable, illogical, honest, needy, non-discerning, doesn't have boundaries. Whereas the adult or the head is the opposite. So it's obvious that we need both the head and the heart in order to create balance in our lives. Because if I'm too much in my head or too much in my heart, then I'm going to create a problem because I have nothing to balance it. Remember, the other balance, they balance each other. So if I'm too much in my heart, my feeling body, then I'm not going to discern when something I'm doing isn't good for me. And a good example of this, I feel, is a prison. What is a prison filled with? People who've committed crimes. If you look at the crimes when people commit them, if you looked at understanding why a person would do that, almost everyone would say, why would I do that? This is wrong, to hurt someone, to steal, etc. But if you feel that you should do it because you feel like doing it and you want it, like a child says, I want it and I want it now, you may do that. You may steal, you may injure someone, you may do something that is against the law, which has consequences. And I will always wonder how many people today are sitting in prisons for 10 years, 20 years, a life, thinking about what they did to cause them to be in that cell they're sitting in today. Because they're in a whole different place. They're actually reflecting on why they did it frequently. And of course, wouldn't have done it if they had access to that part of themselves, which of course at the time they didn't. So this is, to me, an example of what happens, an extreme example, of course, what happens when we're out of balance with the child and the adult within us. So how we can understand those two aspects of our nature are through the qualities or aspects, which I've spoken about on the other video I did on Ayurveda, because it's the science of attributes. Even in this case, it's still relative and practical to consider. To understand the head and the heart, to understand the qualities. And that's what I've gone into at great length in the book.